Senator, you mentioned something that I wanted to bring up. I looked into it quite extensively. You were part of the Texas 11 that broke quorum in the legislature in 2003 due to some political wrangling about redistricting and so forth. Can you tell us more about that issue and how it played out? I think a lot of people don't know how that whole thing concluded and what were some of the elements involved with it.
Well, for your audience, let's talk a little bit about what redistricting is. In the United States Constitution, it says take a census every 10 years and then reapportion the political voice. If this place has grown and this has declined, they get more representation. In Texas, we're going to get 4 new congressmen. Why? Because we've grown more than any other state. And so every 10 years, at every level, from city councilman to Texas senator, these districts are redrawn to accurately represent the voice in your district. Texas has 31 senators, so I get 1/31th, is that right, of the state's population in my district. And what happens, without question, every time this is done, the political party in power, whether it's Democrat or Republican, takes every advantage to gerrymander those lines to the nth degree to benefit them. And Democrats did it in the 70s to Republicans. Republicans took it to a new level with respect to Texas in 2003. And why I say that is, for the first time, really in American history, someone, a guy named Tom DeLay, had an idea, let's redistrict. In other words, plain reading of the Constitution would say, well, you have a census every 10 years. We're going to draw the lines once, and those are the lines for the next 10 years, right? They did that. For the congressional seats in Texas, they drew those lines. And Tom DeLay came in, saw an opening, funded dozens of elections in the Texas House, elected his friend as the Speaker of the House, and then came back to the House in 2003 and got his Speaker to draw new maps that got him 5 new congressmen. Why? It was the least expensive way to get 5 new congressmen in Texas. It's very expensive to run against an incumbent. But if you can draw the incumbent out of his district, you get 5 congressmen. Here you go. You who are in political science, did you know that happened? That's what happened. They redistricted. They took a second bite at the apple. Nobody in America knew that. When we broke quorum, breaking quorum means that under the rules in a particular body, if they don't have enough base votes on the floor, they can't take action, okay? And so in the Senate, you have to have 21 votes on the floor to do something. We had enough to take ourselves out of the Senate and say, stop and reflect on what you're doing. You're cheating the people of Texas. You're cheating in redistricting, and you're cheating in drawing these lines to carve Hispanics out of a vote. All these were really about districts that went from Laredo all the way to Austin, if you can imagine. And so we spent 48 days in beautiful downtown Albuquerque, breaking quorum. And boy, there were a lot of people that were upset and saying, you're a coward for leaving the Senate and coward for leaving the floor. And I had to stop them and say, just a second, did you know that Abraham Lincoln broke quorum? He did it by jumping out of a window in Springfield, Illinois. These are stories that are not often told. And he was, of course, the father of the Republican Party. That came as some news to some of my friends on the other side of the aisle. And I said, most Americans don't know that you're redistricting. And we believe Americans need to hear what you're doing. And so, depending on your point of view, it was a tremendous act of courage, or it was leaving your post when you should have stayed there and let them vote because they had the majority. I would do it again in a heartbeat. I think those tactics are tactics offered by the rules that govern us. And as a minority party, you should live and breathe to become the majority party. You should say, my ideas are better than yours. Our ideas will make Texas a better place. Hear us out. And so taking the opportunity to show that this was actually illegal was important. And the Supreme Court ruled that portions of the maps that they drew were illegal and that they disenfranchised Hispanics in the border communities of Texas. So I actually think it was one of the great moments of my time in the Senate. I was very proud of it.
You called it a defining moment, I see, in the literature that I read. And I think it's kind of sad that, unfortunately for minority communities, studies show their vote is a little more predictable in a partisan way. And I think those communities tend to get attacked with different devices and mechanisms to try to suppress the vote because of that predictability. And,
well, you know, it's another one of these myths that's been foisted on folks that aren't right now winning elections. Where do you think the straight ticket vote capital of the world is, at least in Texas? Where do you think it is? You read the papers, oh my God, no one thinks in El Paso, all they do is straight ticket vote. It's just a terrible thing. I personally don't think straight ticket voting is the way a citizen ought to operate in democracy. You ought to consider every race, what you know about the candidate, go research it and vote. The capital of straight ticket voting is Midland, Texas. That's where they straight ticket vote more than any other precincts in Texas, all Republican. My point is, when the editor of the El Paso Times uses it to somehow say that what we're doing is bad and, you know, we're not thinking through these candidates, let's really focus on what the issue is. The issue is engaging in democracy and trying to be better citizens, all of us. And I think it's important that the entry level into democracy is voting. That's the essence of civic engagement. You care enough about your democracy that you will actually learn enough about this candidate, what the issue is, to cast a ballot. When I was in the Peace Corps in Africa, literally, there'd never been a free election in this country, in the history of the country. And when these emerging republics in the southern part of Africa and others have the chance to vote, people wait 2 and 3 days to cast their first ballot. They will die, literally, to vote. And here, we have to make the same connection, that our government really is us. It's us doing our best. And if you want it to do the best, then you do your part by voting, by making your voice heard, because it's that important. When you look at some of these races, Gore, Bush, it was 1 vote per precinct. 1 vote per precinct in Florida that was the difference. So when young people tell me my vote doesn't count, I beg to differ.